Another old video format from the analog domain that was developed by Magnafox and Philips was the Laserdisc. Laserdisc delivered the best analog picture that we ever saw off the NTSC system for home use, and in many respects it surpassed DVD in terms of picture quality because it didn't use data compression as DVDs did. I have one here to fix. This is an auto reverse unit. Let's check it out. This is the Pioneer CLD504. This is a auto reverse Laserdisc player that was brought to me by one of my neighbors who bought it off Craigslist in, quote, working condition. Played one movie, it auto reversed, played the other side, wouldn't eject. He got into it himself to take the disc out. Now it's coming up with an error. So here's the mechanism. First thing I'm going to do, see, I have one very similar to this, but mine also does CDs, or sorry, DVDs. This one will just play CDs. Mine has a DVD reader, so I've got a dual laser. But and of course the additional circuitry required for digital playback, so it's got more boards in it to support the DVD player portion of it. But mechanically wise, it's going to be very similar to what mine is. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to just observe the operation when I try to operate the mechanism. So all that's happening is it says open on the display, but I hear nothing trying to happen. So let's try to open this thing manually by turning the underneath the side here. There's a pulley, or a gear here, a pulley. This drives the mechanism. And if I turn this, I should be able to open the mechanism. But I'm betting that the problem is something is not timed properly. So I'm going to turn this and see. Okay, this is the, looks like the CD tray is going to eject this time. So I'm just going to eject it all the way and see whether it will go back in when I power it up. As I continue to turn this by hand, I'm just watching how the mechanism lifts. It's not lifting correctly, and the laser is all the way down at the end. I can see that the laser is right at the very end of its travel. So that's part of the problem. What I'm doing now is I'm inspecting the actual optical assembly, because the laser on this unit actually physically turns over to play the top side of the disc. Quite often what happens on these units is they get stuck at the end of the travel, at the point where they're switching directions. The laser can get jammed up and cause this type of symptom. So I'm just doing a visual inspection now to see whether that is the problem. It's very likely it just needs to be freed up and greased. We'll take the mechanism apart and check this out. That's a good sign. We'll just try reinstalling this thing and see whether it's just it could have been just this laser got stuck down at the end here. The little drive motor here, sometimes the gear will get a little worm gear there on the end of that drive motor that operates. This is what moves the sled back and forth. And if this gets gummed up here, it can stick. And I'm thinking maybe that's what's happened, is it got stuck. I'm just going to put the mechanism back on top here and see whether the actual disc tray will eject now. Okay, let's see now whether, I don't need this for the moment. I just want to see whether this thing's going to open. I'm going to hit the open button. I believe it opens. I like that. That's what it's supposed to do. Okay, then the laser's moving. Excellent. Okay, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to lubricate. So we'll just shut this off now. I'm going to remove this. I don't know if I need to remove this bracket to lubricate it or not. I probably should, because I think it'll make getting at the actual pickup easier. I want the pickup in its fully forward position. We'll grease the rails, and okay, laser's forward now. I grease the rails, grease that little gear that sometimes sticks, because I think that might have been what was happening. How the laser operates, as we'll see when I play a disc on this, is that the laser plays the bottom side, and then it extends beyond the end of the track where it actually comes off of the rails, flips around, and then there's another set of rails on the top here. Right? This is the top side of the rail, and that's dry. This is dry, this rail. They're all going to be dry. The rail on the other side of this is also going to be dry. And what can happen is, when the lubricant dries up on the slide rails, the laser can get stuck. And I think that's probably what happened on this, is that the laser got stuck. He said his symptom was that it played a disc, it played the second side of the disc, and then when the disc was over, it would not eject. That's a very common problem on these auto reverse units, and usually you can resolve that by just turning that little nylon gear that's on the front here, which we'll look at when I take this apart again. But that's usually what goes wrong on these auto reverse units. I'm about to dip into my dwindling supply of Molykote grease. I now have four packages? Four full packs is all I've got. This is it. When this is gone, it's gone. Please stop asking where I get Molykote grease, because I don't have an answer. Okay, I have no idea who supplies this grease. I'm sure you can buy grease that's very, very similar, if not the same type of lithium or molybdenum type grease. This grease, for those that are interested, back in the 1980s, Mitsubishi packed it with their replacement pinch roller arm assemblies for their like HSU 65, 67, 82, those type of VCRs, which used the pinch roller that was mounted on the slide that went up and down with the tower gear that turned it. So it was the pinch roller that dropped in behind the tape, and it was used to lubricate those type of mechanisms. The original grease that came on them from the factory was that black crap that dried out and caused all kinds of problems. This is the replacement grease they shipped with every unit. And how I ended up with it was, well, there's a lot of grease in here. This would do maybe 5 VCRs. So I wouldn't use the whole pack. I would use what I needed, and I would keep the rest. And I ended up with quite a collection. This bag at one point was full. I'm now down to 4. So don't ask where I get it. I don't know, because this all came as part of a parts kit. I'm sure that the lithium grease that you can buy, made by companies like MG Chemicals, which is usually white, but it's still very good grease, I'm sure that that will be fine. That's what I'm going to have to use when I run out of the stuff. I'm using this stuff because I have it and it works and it's good grease. But where I get it, I couldn't tell you, because I've never actually bought it at retail. It's always come as part of a kit. And like all the rest of them, I'm going to just open the corner up of this so that I don't waste it, and just use a very, very small amount so that the remaining 4 packs that I've got will continue to last me. I think I had about 10 packs when I left the business when I left the service business about 15 years ago. I had maybe 9 or 10 packs of it, but most of them were smaller. The early kits came with this big pack, and then they came out with a smaller one, which was much, much smaller and had about a quarter the amount of grease. And I've used all those ones up, so now I'm getting into the last of my supply. And this should last me for, I would imagine, another few years at the rate that I use it. But anyway, that's the scoop on Molykote. Don't know where you can get it. Maybe a Google will help you. But I think that any of the lithium greases, you know, MG or any of the other companies, I'm sure even Deoxit's got some, or Keg, or I guess Keg. I'm sure they've got some under the Deoxit brand as well. MG Chemicals make a good one, and I'm sure there's others. But anyway, that's what I'm using on this one. I'm just going to put a very small amount, because you don't want to put too much grease in. Too much grease is going to attract excessive dirt. So we're just going to put a small amount on the end of the screwdriver here and just wipe it onto the gears. Let that work its way in. And we'll put some onto the rail. And I will move the camera so you guys can see where I'm doing this as well. I think it's going to be getting time to invest in a new camera. The plastic on the base of this camera where the tripod holder screws in is kind of failing. One of these days this camera is just going to drop and fall right into whatever I'm working on. I guess it's going to be time to invest another couple grand on a new camera. Have to wait to get some YouTube revenue to do that, right? Okay, so where I'm going to put this grease is I'm going to put this grease along this rail here. And there's another rail that's on the top. I'll lower the camera down in a minute so you guys can see that, but I'm just going to put some along here and wipe this grease in. Especially down at this end, down here, on this slide, because this slide rail down here is what lines it up when the laser spins around. So we're going to put a little more on that slide rail on both the top and the bottom side. I'm just trying to get this thing angled so I can get a shot of this with the camera. It's in a really tough spot to see as far as the camera goes. If I turn it a little more this way, yeah, now you guys can see it. It's right down there in the back. A little black. If only this camera would focus. Try manual. There you go. That's what I'm looking at. This is what guides the laser onto its track, is this little black. This is where it gets stuck, is right in this area here. As it's coming up that little ramp. That's what lines it up. So we want to make sure that we've got some grease on this rail. And there's another one on the other side, but it's a flat rail. And on the top, if I can get the camera down lower so we can look up, because I got to look onto the top side of this thing, you will see that there's another one right up here. And I got to get in here and grease this one as well. So this top rail needs to be greased. Nice thing about this grease is that it will work its way in. I don't need to soak the whole rail. I just need to put a little bit on there, because the first time the laser goes over this thing, it is going to work the grease in. So we'll put some on here, and we'll put some along the slide, this rail here. And of course, I'm also going to put some grease on the top side here, this rail, and the one below it. Just a little bit. Wipe that one in with my finger. Okay, now it's time to put the mechanism back together and see if this thing will play a disc. We also want to get some into the gears here. As you know, so it looks like there's a hair or something that's stuck in here, doesn't it? There was. Okay, let's get a bit more grease onto this gear here. And there's another gear down underneath the track that I'd like to lubricate too. So we'll just put some on there. Onto this plastic gear, the base. And on the gear that meshes with it. What this screw is, this is a electrostatic discharge screw. It's just to stop electrostatic charges from building up in this plate, because this is mounted on plastic, right? Because this adjusts, this is the a tilt adjustment for the laser assembly, so this is actually electrically isolated from the rest of the chassis. So this ground wire here is to dissipate any electric charges that would build up, which of course, when you're spinning a polycarbonate disc at 1800 RPM, and that's what speed it spins at for a CAV disc, there is the potential that this could actually build up quite a static charge, and if that static charge were to dissipate anywhere near the laser, it could cause the laser to go poof. So that is why this ground wire is here. That's just to discharge any charge that could be picked up from the mechanism itself due to the spinning disc. Okay, mechanism is back together. We'll power this thing on and see if it opens, and better still, see if it plays the disc. Power on. Open laser. Let's put a disc in it. I have probably between 200 and 300 laser discs that I didn't have to buy from somebody. They gave them to me. They just said, here, you want my Laserdisc collection? They gave me their player, and they gave me their entire collection, and I've got dozens of classics. I have all the Indiana Jones discs. I have the Beatles, Hard Day's Night, Help, Yellow Submarine. I have Star Wars, Return of the Jedi. I got them all the original ones. And oh, you name it, and I got some classics. I got tons and tons of Laserdiscs. Still love them. You know, for what they were fantastic. This thing looks like it's going to play. Let me plug it into a TV and let's take a look at the picture. It's playing. Let's search this out here. That's fine. Where are we going forward? What's this got on it for? Gotta hold the button on this thing. We'll get into some picture here. I'm going backwards here. So I want to see the very beginning of it. Ah, look, it was filmed in BC. Ha ha ha. 1885. I don't think so. It was probably filmed in BC, but... So there it is. It's playing. I'm going to let it play and do an auto reverse on this thing here. And I obviously can't show this for more than a few seconds. So we'll go back down to a shot of that beautiful disc spinning. Laserdisc has always been a format that it's just fascinated me. I've got in my own collection, let's see, I don't even remember how many Laserdisc players I've got. I've got an old CLD504, which was my first. I have a Panasonic, I forget the model, but I've got a Panasonic. I've got an auto reverse Pioneer like this one. I don't know if it's a CLD504. No, I think mine's got the jog shuttle, so mine would be 1 up from this one, maybe 2 up from this. I've got the I think it's the 905. It's got the CD and DVD player. I've got that one as well. It's auto reverse, plus it has a CD player and a DVD player. And I've got a Yamaha. I got a bunch of them, and I got a big collection of Laserdisc movies. I was always fascinated by the quality, and most of those movies I didn't buy. I bought a few of them, but a lot of them were people gave them to me. But the thing with Laserdisc, for the analog format, for the NTSC format, it was the absolute best in terms of picture quality. People will argue and say that DVD had a better picture, but I will argue that one, because I don't believe DVD had a better picture. With component video out and progressive scanning, DVD could look more fluid because of the native 24 frame playback from film. But most DVDs weren't authored very well and didn't offer much in terms of improved picture over what we had with Laserdisc, which was a pure analog signal with no compression artifacts. And that was the biggest problem with DVD, was that because it was a digital format, we had to deal with compression. And most manufacturers of discs did not want, or most studios, I should say, did not want to go to the dual layer format, at least not initially. They eventually did, but in most cases they did not go with dual layer discs. They went with single layer discs. In a lot of cases they had a flip over disc where they had the pan and scan version of the movie on one side and the widescreen movie on the other. Or they went to a dual layer disc and put the pan and scan on one layer and put the widescreen on the other. They didn't take advantage of the dual layer disc to enhance the picture quality. They took advantage of it so that they could put a bunch of extra crap like outtakes and stuff on there that you really didn't give a crap about, but you know, they thought that you were interested in it. Had DVD gone with the full 10 megabit bandwidth, the picture quality would have been much better than it was. But in most cases, DVD was encoded at 5 to 6 megabits tops, and you could see the compression artifacts. Whereas with Laserdisc, because there was no compression, you had the best picture quality that you could get off of NTSC, and it looked fantastic. And I'm just watching this movie now on my plasma, which this is a standard definition plasma, and the picture looks great. Let's turn this thing on to side B. I want to watch the laser change. So if I hit the button there, it'll stop spinning, and the laser's going to spin around and come back the other way. And now the disc reversed and went the other direction. And I'm just going to give this a bit wider shot so we can go back again so you guys can see this thing, because I think I missed it in frame there. But if I go back to the A side, you'll see the laser. And that's where it was sticking, was right there. And the disc just reversed directions if you weren't paying attention. We'll flip it back to the side B so you can watch it stop. So the disc stops, okay? There, see, it's come to complete stop. Now it's going the opposite direction. And that changes directions fairly quick. And there we go, back to side A. I'll show you guys how quick it changes when I'll show you the screen while it changes so you see what it does. So there's the opening logo. And of course the movie's going to start. I hit the button to change sides. $10 seconds. That's all it takes. And normally it takes less than that because, of course, I'm changing sides from the beginning of the disc. So I have to wait that extra couple seconds as the laser actually goes to the end of its travel. Normally when it's playing, if we play it to the end of the side so you can see how this thing changes, I'll just hold the fast forward button and skip way ahead, and we'll watch this thing change its direction on its own. Of course, this one doesn't have the digital memory on it. One of my players has got digital memory, so I can freeze a picture some of the players had that, where all Laserdisc players, there was two modes of recording a disc. There was what's called the CAV, which stood for constant angular velocity. On CAV discs, I'll go pull out a CAV disc and put it on so you guys can see it. But on CAV, you get trick playback, you get stop, you get freeze frame, you get perfect scan forward, perfect scan back, and you can go single frame at a time. And that's because with CAV, the disc rotates at a constant speed of 1800 RPM. One rotation is 2 fields. So basically, there's 2 fields that make up a frame, and the disc is rotating at 30 times per second, or 30 frames per second. When you look at the disc, you can actually see the encoding, and I'll show you a disc so you can see the difference. There was also the CLV, or constant linear velocity, and that takes into account that the circumference of the disc is larger as the laser moves out from the beginning, because it starts playing from the middle of the disc, plays to the outside. So that takes in consideration as the laser moves to the outer edges of the disc, because the circumference is larger, the actual distance per rotation is larger. So as the laser moves to the outside of the disc, the linear speed of the disc slows, just like it does on a CD player, so that the actual readout speed is the same. And as I move this disc forward, you will see, or you'll hear it, slowing down. We'll scan ahead quite a bit more here. But as you can probably hear, and maybe even see, the disc speed is dropping slightly now. And it will get quite slow by the time it gets to the outer tracks. Now the difference between the two speeds was the CAV speed, or constant angular velocity, only gave 30 minutes of recording per side. And with CLV, they got 60 minutes per side, so it doubled the amount of time. CAV was great if you wanted to look at special effects, and there was a lot of movies that were released as collector editions in CAV, and the movies would come on 2 and sometimes 3 discs, and those movies cost a bloody fortune. And some of the movies I have are in that mode, where it's like 3 discs to make up one movie. And the discs themselves are quite big, or the actual jackets are quite big, because they've got 3 discs in them. And of course that added to the cost big time. I'm currently halfway through the disc. I'm at the 30-minute, almost at the 30-minute mark, and as you can see, I'm sure you can see, that the disc is going much slower. And it will continue to get even slower and slower as the movie gets closer to the end. But of course, when it's time for it to reverse directions, this is going to speed up the process substantially. We should be getting to the point where it's automatically going to change sides. Okay, there, it's gone to black. And there it changed sides, or it's gone to blue, I should say. And now it spins up and played side 2. That's how the auto reverse operates when it's operating. The picture just goes black because at the end of the side, they went to black for about a second before the movie actually stopped. And then people with a manual player, it would just go to black and they'd have to get up and come out and turn the disc over manually. People with the auto reverse player, they just sat back and watched it do its thing. It's going to eject the disc now, make sure that it ejects properly. We'll try some CDs on this unit, and I'll go grab one of my test discs that I can show you the quality of. There we go. It's working. One thing that many people don't realize is that Laserdiscs came in 3 sizes. They came in the 12-inch standard size that movies were on. They also came in a smaller 8-inch version, which are typically used for shorter presentations, like music videos. And then they came in a 5-inch compact disc style of video. I've got 3 of these, and only 3. And what these were what was called a CD video. Not a video CD, a CD video. A video CD, or VCD, was digital video recorded on a standard CD. that played in a video CD player. Many DVD players will also play a video CD. This is a CD video. As you see here, it has 19 minutes and 48 seconds of audio, because the maximum they could put on was 20 minutes, and 5 minutes of video. And if we flip the disc over, first of all, they're gold, but what you see here is the audio portion is on the inner tracks here, and if you put this into a regular CD player, it would play the 5 audio tracks. I think there's 5 audio tracks on this. No, there's 8 audio tracks. So if I put this into a regular CD player, it would play the 8 audio tracks. If I put it into a Laserdisc player, it would play the video track followed by the 8 audio tracks. So let's put this thing in. I can open up the CD portion of this time, because it's a small disc. And the first thing it's going to do is it's going to look at it and say, what are you? It shows it as a compact disc. And if I press play, it should play the music. Then it sees it's a video disc, and it goes to track number 9, which is, you can hear how fast that thing's spinning. Spinning about 3,000 RPM. And this is the flight of the Dream Team. It's skydivers. So we'll show a couple clips of this. So I don't want to play more than about 6 or 7 seconds without cutting away, as I really don't want to pull any match on this in case there is a copyright on it. But basically what it allowed was up to a 5-minute music video and then 20 minutes of music. The quality of the picture is comparable to Laserdisc. You know, 500 lines resolution. It was fantastic. The intended audience for this was to put a music video. Record companies would release a CD video and then have like an EP for, you know, 20 minutes of music. I know the quality by today's standards with GoPros and stuff is pretty lame, but this would have been shot back in the day. This was probably shot on film. Once the video portion of this had finished playing, then they would automatically go in and play the audio portion. And then it should kick into the audio portion. Now again, if I put this in just into an audio player, it would only play it. So now it goes back to track 1. So that was considered track 9. And now it just plays the music only. Of course, this obviously was put out to promote the sport of skydiving. Anyway, that's that little disc. As you can see, audio, video. The next type of discs that were available, and I have one that's I considered this to be a collector's laser disc. It's an 8-inch. I've got a bunch of these, but obviously I'm not going to be able to show you guys more than about 3 seconds of this. But this was the 8-inch version of the laser disc. And in this case, they only recorded on one side. So this is actually the side that's got the program information on it. This side here, actually, if you look at this, you can see this has got CAV encoding on this, and it just has a message that says there's nothing recorded on this side of the disc, but you can see the CAV tracks. Here's your sync pulses here, your sync pulse and the burst, and then you can actually see the individual frames. I don't know if I can get a better shot of that or not, but there you can distinctly see there's the sync pulses, and the color burst would be in here as well. And then here's your individual frames. These are the individual lines, right? As this rotates. So there'll be 262 lines going over to here. Well, actually, there's half of 525, but you've got 240 active lines, because the rest of these are the rest of the lines. The rest of the 262 and a half per field is used up by sync. So if you were to count every one of these little lines here, there'd be 240 on this revolution, and there'd be 240 over here. Right, and this disc operates at 1800 RPM. On this side, of course, you don't get anything like that, except for maybe you might be able to see some stuff at the very, very beginning, but the disc speed changes as the displays. So if I load this one goes into the Laserdisc portion. So if I open up the tray, you'll see that there's a smaller groove here to put that smaller disc in. And when I play this one, now being a smaller disc, these ones spin up a lot faster too. And this is how Pioneer released a lot of material on Laserdisc. And then it gets into the music. And again, I can't obviously gonna be able to play more than a few seconds of this. I think I'm probably okay with this part, but once we actually get into the actual program itself, I obviously can't show it. I'm trying to see what year this was done, but it's anyway, as it says, it's got a rare recording. Okay, so this is where I'm going to have to cut this off here pretty quick, because you know what's going to happen if I let this thing play for any more than about that long. But this is certainly one of the fun things of collecting Laserdiscs, is that there's a lot of this programming that's out there that was not available in any other, you couldn't get this on, I don't think this ever came out on DVD, but anyway, there's a lot of this stuff out there for people that want to collect. You can find a lot of this stuff on Laserdisc. Of course, if I press the button to play the other side of that disc, this is what would come up on a single-sided Laserdisc. There was stuff recorded on the other side. It basically just had a little message that said, program material is recorded on the other side of this disc. And that was on, because all Laserdiscs, there was no way to make a Laserdisc that was single-sided. Just the very nature of Laserdiscs themselves, the way that the disc is constructed, it's made of two halves that are glued together. You can see the two distinct sides, and you can see where they're glued together. All Laserdiscs were two sides, and they were glued together. And that was problematic, by the way, too. This one's a full-size CAV disc. You can clearly see the sync bars. This is where the horizontal, or actually the vertical sync is. Horizontal sync is in each one of the frames, but this is your vertical sync. As you can see, as it gets to the outside of the disc, it spreads out, because obviously if I can get this in focus. So if we look at the edge of this disc, where's my sync? It's right in here. If we look at that, you'll see that it actually, it gets bigger as the disc gets, you know, as the diameter increases. And that's why with CAV or with CLV, they were able to slow the disc down, because this is wasted space, right? You're putting the same amount of information on a larger disc surface. And that was wasted space. This disc here is another collector's item. Something that we will likely never see again. This was an IMAX film. I saw this film in IMAX, and the film in IMAX was unbelievable. Look at the disc wobbling as it spins up. Of course, this is the space shuttle, filmed in IMAX. But they took an IMAX camera up on the space shuttle and filmed the Earth in IMAX. And if you ever get a chance to see the actual film in IMAX, this film here, it is one of the most incredible experiences I've ever seen on film. Of course, the reason I'm showing you guys this disc is this is a CAV disc. So that means I can pause this and get a perfect picture, get a perfect freeze frame. And if I had the remote control, I could go one frame at a time and analyze this. And that was the beauty of the CAV format, is that you could do things like that. You could look at one individual frame and study it. Now, NASA filmed every space shuttle launch using IMAX type cameras. That's how they are able to determine when the Challenger blew up, that's how they were able to determine what caused it, was because the quality of the film was so good. I mean, it was shot on a 70, I think it was a 70 millimeter film, I believe it read on here. But anyway, if you there's a warning. It says the audio tracks on this Laserdisc have been recorded at maximum dynamic range and may blow your speakers if playback at high levels during the shuttle liftoff. They had a big warning on there. 40-minute film, and both sides are used. Because 30 minutes maximum per side. But a great film. A great film. This was a great one for anybody who was a space buff. And you see, I paid the incredible high price of $5 for this. But when I found this one in a store being cleared out, this was one I had to buy. So, you know, $5. Great film for $5. I got a bunch of other ones here too. I can show you. We'll just stop this one. This one was a great disc, a video standard. This basically explained how to calibrate your TV and stuff. I think it even came with a blue filter. It did. So with this blue filter, everything looks eerily blue. And what you do with this is you put up the color bars on, this actually could be used on a modern TV as well. But you put up the color bars and you would look through this blue filter, and it might even show up on camera. It's probably going to mess with the color balance on the camera, but basically, when you're looking at color bars, you adjust, well, first of all, you adjust your brightness and contrast so that the black level is absolute black and just barely showing gray from the black bar to the first gray bar. You adjust the color level control so that the white and blue bars here look the same. When you're looking at that, I mean, it looks different on camera, but when you're looking at a color bars on a monitor, the white and blue here are the same intensity. Now you adjust your color level control to increase the color level to make the blue intensity look the same as the blue that's shining through on the white here, same on here. So you would adjust the color control so those were the same, and then you would adjust the tint control so that both of these had the same color of blue. And you would, and once you had your tint level and your color level set, these would look equal. There'd be no difference between the bars here. They would look the same shade of blue with this filter, the primary blue filter. This is the same type of primary blue that would have been on television camera tubes back in the tube camera days. Anyway, that's how you set them up. Professional monitors, they just turn the green and red guns off, so they're only looking at the blue gun. And then they can set the color intensity exactly the same way on a professional monitor. This is one of the first few Laserdiscs, in fact it's the only one I know of, that is actually a single-sided disc. The top side is not a acrylic glued standard disc. It's got a plastic disc on top of it, but this is actually a single-sided disc. It's the only one I've ever seen like that. And this one here, when it's loaded, it's got a bunch of test signals and stuff on it. Of course, you need the remote control to do everything. But they have a lot of demonstrations on this thing that I can show you guys. In addition to color bars, they did their own little widescreen thing where they took two cameras and they flew them together and put the picture together into a widescreen presentation that they shot with two 4x3 cameras. More of an experiment. They didn't have their levels matched between the two cameras, so it was kind of tacky, but so there's an old studio, and it brings back memories from when I worked in a TV studio with equipment very much like that. Old black and white monitors, switcher, Oh yeah, have to have their little cartoon out here. This was always something that would go wrong in the studio. Something wasn't right. You lost your gen lock, and you'd end up with colors strobing. Well, not like that, but somewhere you'd have all the colors, all the vectors spinning. If you lost your gen lock, all your color would be going through all the phases. But anyway, that's their little opening for this disc. I guess they were trying their hand at humor. Yeah, they'll show how studio production is done. I like this cassette tape to back up your presets. That shows how old this thing is. But those were some pretty darn good cameras they had. Those were the Philips studio cameras, I believe, that they had in this thing when they did this thing. Convergence, and yeah, here they're looking at the chip chart, setting the white balance. Stuff all brings back memories. Checking house bars with camera bars. The house bars had the camera bars were the full field, and the house bars were the SMPTE bars. Yeah. Here's their little. This is what I was going to show you guys here. Here's what these guys did. They took a couple of Betacams, they put them into an acrylic box, and flew them from a helicopter. One small problem here: the colors aren't perfect. The cameras aren't perfectly matched. But hey, that was their attempt at flying over the Grand Canyon, trying to produce a widescreen from back in the day when we didn't have widescreen. All we had was 4x3. Anyway, that's that disc. And again, because it's CAV, I can get a perfect freeze frame. Wonder what happens if I try to play side B. What's this one going to do? I never thought about that. Since there's no reflective surface, what's it going to do? It's come up with an error F5. Side A will play. Oh, and now it knows. It now knows that there's no side B. When I try to switch it, nothing happens. I wonder if I eject it. I wonder if I eject this to start playing side A and then try to flip to side B, will it try, or will it know that it's a single-sided disc? I certainly tried to play it when I tried to play side B from the get-go. Okay, will it play? Yeah, it'll try to play side B. And now it says F5. It's interesting because it's not slowing the disc down quickly. It's just like it's gone off. And then it'll try side A. Okay, because normally when you stop it, it'll stop it quickly. In that case, when it read that disc with only one side, it just shut down and let the disc coast to a stop. So that's what happens with that. I know I'm going on too long with this video now that this thing's fixed. Most of you guys have probably left by now, right? But if you're still stuck in there, got a couple of other discs to show you. Here's one that they used to give out to the dealers, and we used to just let this thing sit and play. This was like a dealer demo disc. I think there's only stuff. Oh, they've got both sides. Side 1's CAV and side 2 is CLV. That's interesting. So they've got it in both modes on this disc. So this is the CAV side. So on the CAV side, I can get all the fancy special effects. Go in super high speed and it's clear, crystal clear, right? Same with freeze, I can pause it. Of course, when you're pausing a frame on a field video, we've now got two fields showing at the same time. So you're going to get motion blur. That was the downside to interlace video, right? With the two fields, is that when you freeze it, well, you've got two fields showing at the same time, so you get the zipper effect. If I go to side B, it's the same programming, but recorded in the CLV speed. And the reason that they did this was because they had Laserdisc players that had digital memory in it, so that you could demonstrate in the store, you could demonstrate the difference. Now you notice when I go into search, on this one it's kind of jumping ahead, it's not smooth. But if I try to freeze this, I get nothing, because this player doesn't have digital memory. But some of the players, like my player, has digital memory, and I can freeze it, and I get a freeze frame. And the same as that on my auto reverse machine, when it's doing an auto reverse, it actually freezes the last frame of the movie while it changes direction. But that's the big difference there between the two. Good demo. I got one more disc to show you guys. I won't be playing this, I'm just going to show it to you. This was, I had this disc given to me. I didn't buy it, but I can assure you that the person that did probably paid a lot for it. Studios would release special movies. I've never seen this movie. I should sit down and watch it sometime. But they would release special movies in a collector's edition. And of course, in a collector's edition, you're going to get Steven Spielberg's signature and some pictures from the set. I've never even looked in this thing. Oh, wow. What did someone pay for this disc? They paid $100, looks like. This was owned by Jack Frost. I know Jack Frost. He used to run a video store. And he was a projectionist, and he ran a movie theater and had a video store. In fact, it was one of the few Laserdisc stores around, and it wasn't close by either. It was a long ways out. I used to go out there to his store to rent movies, and I'd go like once a week because it was like 50 miles away. I'd go out there and rent like half a dozen movies, and he'd let me keep them for a week because I was a long ways out. But looks like he was the original owner of this one, and he paid $100 for it. And that would have been wholesale, right? Because that was from Video One Canada. They were the wholesaler. So this is what a store would have paid for this movie. And they're talking about they did the restoration. This was done in 1996. And check out the number of discs that this movie is on. This is ridiculous. Side 1, side 2, side 3, side 4, side 5, side 6, side 7, and side 8. 4 discs. That has to be a record. And I had this given to me, this movie. I would have to think that the person that gave it to me bought it from his video store. It was given to me by one of my neighbors who gave me a Laserdisc player and a box full of movies. And her son worked, he passed away a few years ago. He worked in the film industry. He was an animator and worked on movies like Toy Story and Finding Nemo and stuff, and was a big movie fan, so they had a bunch of movies. Anyway, that's I'm not going to show you this movie because obviously if I even put 2 frames of this thing up, I'm sure I'll get nailed with a copyright strike. But anyway, that's how the collector's editions would come. And it's 2 hours and 28 minutes, so it's not even that long a film, but it's on 8 sides. Actually, I guess it's on 7 sides because it does. Nope, it's got 8 sides. Here we go. Standard play for sides 1 through 5 and side 8. Side 6 and 7 is at extended play. So the reason that they would have done that was because of the time. Each side is 30 minutes. So sides 1 through 5 and side 8. It must be special. It's probably special edition stuff. That's what it is. The movie itself is probably on sides 1 through 5. 6, 7, and 8 is going to be the special features, I'm thinking. Anyway, I've never watched this. One of these days I'm going to have to sit down and actually watch this movie because I've never seen it. But I've got the Laserdisc of it, so might as well watch it someday, right? Anyway, that's about it for this one. This unit is fixed. Guy that owns it's going to be pretty happy that he didn't buy something off Craigslist and get burned. And now he's got his Laserdisc player back. So there you go. I'm going to now sit down and watch 1941 on this player. Nothing better to do than test this one. So thanks for watching. The unit's all back together, ready to go back to the owner. If you want to support this channel, you can do so either with PayPal or through Patreon. All donations received, of course, go into production of more content. Thanks again for watching. We'll catch you in the next one real soon.